morning. I want to thank the National Homeland Defense Foundation for inviting me to speak here once again. And it's a pleasure to return back to Colorado. We gather here at a sad moment, just a few days ago, after the terrible shooting at Fort Hood. And when I saw the news, and I was so saddened and troubled by what I have heard and what I have seen. 2 years ago, I remembered I was asked by the US military to provide sensitivity training to soldiers at Fort Hood about to deploy to the Middle East. I was warmly welcomed by these soldiers at the base. I met with hundreds of them. All of them were very respectful, polite, and eager to learn from a Muslim woman. My heart breaks at the thought that these men and women were targeted last week's attack. I want to begin with a moment of silence in memory of these victims. Today I was asked to speak about, or to answer the question, how does the Muslim world view us? That question is made even more urgent after last week's event. But last week's shooting also shows how complicated the question is. After all, the killer was a Muslim, apparently upset about US policy, was also one of us, an American and a US soldier. So I have 3 key points to talk about here in my brief presentation. First, the Muslim world is an incredibly diverse, complex place, which cannot be reduced to one geographic area or one viewpoint. I will share some example of that complexity. Second, American policy, like overall public opinion in many Muslim countries, remains in flux. We have a new president with a new politics, but we are not sure exactly where we are going. The Muslim world, including its radical elements, is here in America. We Americans support our troops as they risk their lives to try to stop terror abroad. But last week's attack, it's a reminder that terror can occur inside our own country. Radical ideologies are spreading in the US. We need to take stock of this reality and deal with it as responsible leaders. Muslim world complexity. Muslim lives in almost every country in the world. There are over a billion Muslims. Some estimate 1.5 billion. It is impossible to generalize the views of over a billion people. Even in one country, there is an enormous range of views. Take, for example, Iraq, where people have been fighting each other for years. You have different ethnic groups, different religious and sectarian strain, and different political parties. There are Iraqis who put a poster of George Bush as a liberator of the country, and there are Iraqis who does not want to hear his name. I have spent a lot of time in Iraq, in the area of Basra and what around it, and sometimes in the south, sometimes in the north. In Basra specifically, as many cities, as in many other cities in the country, viewpoints are divided by neighborhoods, sometimes even by streets. And to speak about how Muslim world view us or view America is impossible. That being said, there are some clear attitudes. Many Iraqis, for instance, have strong opinion. Of course, even these opinions are complex. For example, if you ask many people in Iraq, if they would like to see US military leave Iraq, they would say yes. And if you continue and ask them if the soldiers would they like to see the soldiers leave tomorrow, they should strongly answer no. We still need them. Many people are fearful of radical Islamists and worry what will happen to Iraq once the United States troops depart. Will Iran or Saudi Arabia exert influence in the country? Will violence reclaim the streets? In other parts of the Muslim world, you can find similar mix of resentment and admiration. The same person may chant slogans against America and then ask for help to obtain a visa to the United States. And please know that there are millions of people in the Muslim world who deeply admire America, who appreciate how America contributes so much to the world, and see America as a beacon of hope. These people are not normally shown in the news, nor their voice being heard. In fact, they are often too quiet, but they are out there. America is also in flux. Many people in the Muslim world were excited about elections of Barack Obama as a president. The coverage on the Arab media and the Muslim news agencies that day after his victory was like nothing else I have seen before. Of course, the next day, he appointed Rahm Emanuel as a chief of staff. The same media that appraised him a day before did not know what to do. The great Obama had selected as his top aide a man who volunteered in Israel. And the answer was, Israel implemented their son in the White House. And that was the headlines. So even with the new administration, from the beginning, there were mixed signals and reactions in the Muslim world. That flux and confusion is reflected in the US policy as well. For example, there are many US troops in Iraq today as they were under Bush. There are more troops in Afghanistan today under Obama, and there will likely be even more. The US government is directly engaging the Iranian regime on a nuclear talk, but President Obama also has praised the grassroots movement protesting the regime. The US is threatening more sanctions and setting deadlines, but then letting the deadline slip. Many in the Muslim world eagerly anticipate President Obama address in Cairo. I should note that our organization, as we have an office in Cairo, was invited to attend that speech. And in fact, we had our Cairo office director met privately afterwards with President Obama's top advisors. In the end, the president's speech was met both excitement and disappointment in the Muslim world. Many people like the attention, but not all the message. And people waited for clear action to understand where the US now headed. We see that very clearly. Many people asking whether the new administration will support all of these tyrants and dictators in the Muslim world, or will support freedom fighters and activists who would like to have freedom to be able to live a normal life without a fear of their